Hey there, everyone. I'm so excited to be here for my very first LinkedIn Live. And I see there's a few of you watching already. I'd love it if you would just share that you're watching. Let me know that my sound is working. That would be great. And where you're watching from. Today, we're going to be joined by Vince Mirabelli, who I will introduce in just a second. But before that, I just wanted to touch on a few things. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Lindsay Lapaquette, and I work with leaders who want to elevate team performance by refining their leadership communication skills. And I have a vision of creating a world where everyone feels seen and heard for who they are. And I think that leaders are in a very privileged position to be able to influence this change in the world. And so the goal of these LinkedIn Lives is going to be speaking with all sorts of different experts who share a similar philosophy, who can give us tips and tools and strategies around how we can all become better leaders and better people. Before I go any further, I just want to share next week's live. So usually we'll be doing these Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Earlier today, my daughter, who is 8 and just as spunky as I am, said to me, "Mama, how many LinkedIn Lives have you done today?" And I said to her, "None. I'm about to do one after supper. How come?" And she said, "That's not very many." And so we'll be doing these weekly because apparently my daughter does not think that doing one LinkedIn Live is a very big deal. So thank you for joining. I'm going to share with you next week's episode is going to be with Roxanne Durhodge. Roxanne is a psychotherapist, a consultant, and a speaker. And we're going to be talking about how authentic leadership improves the bottom line. So I'm going to drop a link to that in the comments in a few moments. And I'm going to invite Vince in to join us. As I'm bringing Vince in, you can follow the hashtag Live with Lindsay, where I'll be sharing all of these future events. So let's bring Vince in with me here.
Hey.
And it worked.
It worked.
Vince.
Yeah. What's up?
Hi, Vince. How are you?
I'm good. You know, something I will just because I'm honored that I get the honor. I'm honored to be your first guest. But I'll say this: your first episode, the first time you do anything, will be terrible.
I'm gonna blame that on you.
But you need to do that. You need to be terrible because that's the only way your 50th is good. So
all right then.
So let me be the guinea pig. So we'll just suck it up
in all of its awfulness.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm in.
Awesome.
And so speaking of awful beginnings, the reason that I wanted to invite Vince as my first guest is because he was the one and only person to join in and follow my hashtag LinkedIn Almost Live when we were desperately trying to get access to LinkedIn Live. And so that has gotten you the honor of being my first guest. So thank you.
And I appreciate that. And I'm still very upset at the good people at LinkedIn for not giving me access to live. So yeah, we'll have to take that up with them.
So there you have it. People of LinkedIn Live. Vince also wants access.
You're pissing me off, LinkedIn. Come on, man. Hook a brother up. Hook a brother up. Okay.
All right. So today we're here to be talking about creating a culture of continuous improvement. And seems like it's a topic that lots of people were interested in. So I'd love it if while we're chatting, you can throw your questions, the things you'd like us to address, throw those into the comments and we can address those as we go along. I'd like to make this as interactive as possible. And maybe while people are doing that, Vince, you can tell us who you are.
Yeah, so I am a bunch of things, but I am a teacher, a trainer, a coach in the field of continuous improvement and I guess organizational excellence is probably the best way for me to describe it. So I come at it from a variety of different backgrounds. So I'm a certified business analysis professional. I'm a project management professional, PMP. I have certifications in customer experience, and Lego serious play and change management. I'm a Lean Six Sigma master black belt. I like to describe myself as sort of like the Death Star of problem solving when it comes to business problems. And now, when I said that the first time to an audience member, somebody yelled back, "The Death Star blew up twice." And yes, I get it. That's not, but it's just the visual of like how you can focus laser in on a single problem and solve it using a variety of different tools and perspectives, and then applying that to the organization, because at the end of the day, organizations have an impetus to get better. And that's sort of the driving force behind all of the teaching and the coaching and the training that I do. So I focus on individuals to help organizations.
Okay. And so you talk about continuous improvement.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit how you define that? What do you mean when you say continuous improvement? What things are you working on in organizations to help them on this path or journey?
Typically it's coming through a project perspective. But the truth is, individuals need to focus on continuous improvement as well. And it's just the concept of there's always something that you can do, something that you can work on to be better.
Yeah.
So it's about figuring out, where are the gaps in your learning, or what are the strengths that you can really leverage? Like there's been so much focus on closing gaps in learning, and you don't do that because you shouldn't have any like fatal gaps. If you are a terrible communicator, then you should probably work on that, because that's going to hold you back. But you really need to emphasize your strengths. So go all in on the things that you're really, really good at. And I do a lot of training with like business analysts, and what I tell them is like, don't stop at just being a contributor to a project. Become a leader, and get into this enterprise strategic analysis, because that's where your voice is really going to be heard. And so it's about using the skills that you have and getting better, but knowing that there's always something that you can do to improve yourself and to improve the work that we do.
So you talked about these gaps. What are some of the biggest gaps that you see that keep people back from being in this mindset of continuous improvement?
It's I'll go to one. It's fear.
Right.
Fear is the thing that holds most people back. I remember, and I tell the story in some of my courses. I remember, it was about 10 years ago, and I was trying to move ahead in my career in corporate Canada, and I got this terrible advice. Well, now what I recognize is terrible advice, where my leader at the time told me, why are you trying to move ahead? Why are you trying to stick your neck up? Because that's the best way for it to get chopped off. And at the time, like that fear of, maybe things are okay. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe I shouldn't try to push. It held me back, and that was now I recognize it's terrible advice. Right. But you need to figure out how to power through your fear, because that is the thing that is holding you back the most. And it's just acknowledging that you're afraid is a massive gap in preventing us from being successful.
Right. And so what I heard when you were talking about the feedback that you got was that also the culture of the organization, or I maybe shouldn't generalize to the organization because that was one person, but that the culture.
Yeah,
that's
pretty indicative of the culture, but yeah, okay.
Yeah. Which is kind of the case, right? Because organizations have a certain culture, and then certain people are a fit or not. But but so that the culture within that organization is also encouraging and propelling those messages. And those are a lot of the challenges that I see in terms of creating an environment where people feel safe, that they can speak up and challenge thinking. And to me, that is one of the biggest benefits to an organization, when people's ideas are accepted and you can toss around terrible ideas and not be seen as a, you know, a weak employee because your idea wasn't a great one.
Yeah.
So can you speak to that a bit in terms of what you see on a culture level?
Yeah, I'll go even a step further and say that, because I consider myself a professional pain in the ass. Um, I am that person who pushes,
Right.
and it does get me into a lot of trouble. So it's not just, you know, being comfortable sharing bad ideas, because
Yeah.
I mean that's a part of it, but it's also being open to the dissenting voice, right? Because you know, if you have somebody saying, you know, that won't work, or here's how I can prove it, not just that'll never work here, no, that's not going to work. Like,
Yeah.
if you have that dissenting voice, you need to you need to embrace those people,
Yeah.
because they are voicing that opinion not to be difficult, but because they want the organization to be successful.
Right. They're
And so
invested.
they're invested, right?
Yeah.
So by silencing them, you're actually, or you're cutting them out. You are, so, you know, it's important that you listen to those voices. And the reality is, most cultures, most organizations, their culture does not truly encourage it. They may
Right.
say that, but they don't actually want the dissenting voice. They put in mitigations to prevent it from rising too high or spreading too far. They don't want that, because they want people that are on the team. Everybody's got to be on the team. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So
Yeah.
so one thing that organizations can do is to listen to people that voice contrarian opinions. In order to do that, I feel like I'm on a rant here already. It didn't take long. 13 minutes in, first rant. Um, the In order for them to do that, the culture needs to be one that is, and this is nearly impossible, but I'm going to say it anyway, absent of politics,
Right.
because politics is what prevents that behavior, is what prevents those pains in the ass from voicing their opinion,
Yeah.
because they get crushed. And if organizations spent less time politicking and more time just solving problems, they would make their customers' lives better.
And their own lives.
Period. Like,
Yeah.
and scene.
Yeah. So before we go on, I want to go back a little bit. First of all, I just want to ask if, for those who are watching, if you've had an experience where you've tried to be that person who is bringing those ideas forward and have gotten stuck or blocked. And I'd love to hear about your experiences and any questions you have around that. I know that myself, one of the experiences I had, because I have a similar personality and speak up a lot. And there was one organization where I felt that I was the person who was always the annoying one. And interestingly enough, when the boss retired and I spoke to her a few years later, you know, reflecting back, and I thought she found me difficult to manage and bothersome. And she said to me, you know, I wish, she said, when you left, she and I kind of left at the same time. And she said, I wish there had been somebody who would speak up and stand their ground the way you always had. And it was eye-opening to me that although I think she found it challenging to listen to my challenges in the moment, she actually really appreciated it. And so, and I'm not saying that's always the case. I think there are some people who truly don't appreciate it, but that was eye-opening to me, that my experience of it was different than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so one other question that popped into my head, Vince, while you were talking was, where is the line between the person who's speaking up respectfully and challenging ideas and the person who is fully toxic? Because there are people who push their agenda to the extent that it makes the whole team dysfunctional. And so
Right.
where is that line?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not going to be able to give you a defined, like, well,
Yeah.
you can push 8 times, but that
Right,
ninth
right.
time, like, it's hard to articulate. So
Yeah.
it depends on the culture of the organization and what it's willing to tolerate. But I would say that people that are complainers,
Right.
are fairly toxic.
Yeah.
People that come with solutions, and I'm not someone that likes to assume solutions. I like to let data and evidence sort of drive some of my decision making. But if you are coming with just problems and nothing, no way of addressing it, then I think that's where you start to trend towards the toxic border.
Yeah.
If you Because then you're not actually helping. You're just a
Yeah.
complainer. And so, you can get away with it once or twice where you just say like, this is not right. I don't know why, but it's not right. Um, when you come with a solution though, at least it's productive.
Yeah.
And then people, they can say, hey, you're not helping, whatever, but at least you are contributing something. They just are rejecting your premise, and that's a different issue.
Yeah,
But
I think you
so
make a good distinction there because
mhm,
I think that is the line. And I think so. The takeaway to me also is that if you're trying to affect change and speak up, be careful in the way you're doing it. And if it's done, because I think what happens is it becomes so frustrating to people, then it's easy to slip into just complaining about it all the
mhm.
time, which then, I think of myself on the receiving end of that. I don't want to listen to nonstop complaining about things that can't change or things that aren't good, but the person doesn't want to change them. And so if you want to be heard in those discussions, I guess it's also about approaching it in a way where you're not just complaining, but you're raising a red flag
Right.
and um,
Well, and
wanting to change.
LinkedIn user makes a good point, right? Credibility equals the positive contributing, which I take, and I hope this is reflected in what you mean there. It's like if you complain about everything, then you're that complainer. But I think
Mhm.
if you build up enough credibility and goodwill, that when you do, like, early on in my career, I've become more crotchety as I've gotten older. But early on in my career, I was that guy that would sit in meetings and not talk a lot. This is
Yeah.
before I was a speaker, so professional speaking has ruined my career, even though it's enhanced. Anyways, I digress. But it was, I was the person who sat there quietly. I was a true analyst, and people knew that when I did speak, it was to say something valuable. So, now I'm just the guy who talks all the time,
Then you became a
and,
speaker.
then I became a speaker. But but it's almost about picking your battles and knowing what hill you want to die on, to borrow a couple of very worn out
Mm,
worn out analogies. Like, don't fight everything,
right.
but figure out what's important and what's worth fighting for.
Yeah. And I think so where I see it getting toxic sometimes is that people are so passionate about wanting the change that they also can't let go of the things that can't be changed or can't be implemented when their
Mm.
boss tells them no. And there's a line when I've had to learn that. Like I remember one boss I had who would say to me, Lindsay, I've heard you.
Hmm.
It's no. And
Yeah.
I had to learn to respect that because that's hard for me when I really think it's a really bad decision. But if I've raised it enough times and the decision is no, I also have to respect that I'm not the one responsible. I'm not the leader of the team. The repercussions are not on my shoulders. And I also
Yeah.
had to learn to step back sometimes. Knowing when to push and when to step back, I think is a skill. And I think for me, I've realized that part of my work with First Nations organizations taught me that you can only push so far as there's trust.
Yes.
And when I
Back
was
to that point about
new,
credibility, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When I was new working with First Nations clients and they didn't know me, I think I pushed a little too hard sometimes. And I learned from it because the
Mhm.
relationships broke down. And I had to learn to step back before I could step forward sometimes. And
Mhm.
it's never a perfect journey. Like I still mess it up sometimes, but you learn
Mhm.
from the times that it doesn't go well.
Continuous
Um,
improvement,
Continuous improvement.
right? Right? See how that all comes together?
Ta-da-ta.
Da-da-da.
So, Vince, before we go any
Yes.
further, I want to ask you. So, I don't see comments. Where are you
Oh
seeing the
my, oh,
comments?
go under yes, because this is weird being on the other side. I don't have control of the banners and anything.
Oh,
But if
49
you go to
comments
comment,
I've
like,
ignored.
because I want to go back to there's one from
Hi,
4 minutes
everyone.
ago. Maria Rizzuto asked a
Yeah. Hi,
question that
Maria.
I would like to cover, and you can actually put it up on the screen. Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
So, well, they're not coming in on here.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well, can I read it then?
I thought nobody was commenting and no one was
No,
watching, but
they're coming,
I'm not
baby.
going to read through all 49 now, but I
I'll,
was
I'll
so proud of
I'm
my
gonna pick
text
and choose.
skill.
I'm gonna pick and choose. Uh,
So, I'm going to let you
so,
handle that
so
for
I'm
now.
taking over. It's now live with
You
Vince.
go.
So Maria asked, how would you recommend employees stay motivated to improve processes and stay vocal when you get pushback to
Mm,
go along to get along?
good
So
question.
good question, because eventually, if you keep telling your employees no, they do eventually sort of check out, right? So
Yeah.
it's important that when you are improving processes, the number one thing that I do is include them in that improvement. And I'm talking like pure, now I'm getting into like the tactical project management, Lean Six Sigma delivery, but engage them in the process
Yeah.
where they own it, because that's the way to get them to buy in. And then there is no, like, if they are solving a problem that's of value to the organization and they are developing the solution, they have buy-in. They are bought in. And then then you can use them as ambassadors to get their teammates to buy in, and then
Right.
you just rotate the people and keep them engaged.
Hmm.
um Next one down, lack of passion for the job. They show up for the hours only. Yes, now you got really specific here, LinkedIn user. 68% of all workers. I don't know how you get that. I like to let data, and I don't have data to support it, but my gut feel is that that is true. And that's sad. The folks that show up, and I get everyone's situation is different, right? Like, some people work because they have to. Um, I'm actually just putting the finishing touches on a course with a colleague that's coming out in August. On, we're calling it the Fun at Work masterclass, and it's just going to be like, how can you have more fun at work, because it's supposed to be fun. You're not supposed to be miserable at work. So I agree. I question the 68%, but I'm with you in spirit. LinkedIn user, for some reason your name's
Well,
not showing up. LinkedIn
I mean,
user.
I can tell you that there was an article recently in La Presse, the newspaper here, that said that 41% of employees want to change employers after COVID. So that's pretty high. They're not doing it today because the
Sure.
economy is a bit unstable, but they're basically saying, when this is done, I'm out of here. So I think organizations need to take that really seriously when we look at the cost.
So I've been on this for a while. Anybody that goes back to the way it was, so COVID has changed the game. Any organization that goes back to the time BC, before
Mm,
COVID, they're in a lot of trouble, because all the excuses of, we can't work remote,
yeah,
we can't do that, we can't be distributed, like, we can't. The excuses are gone.
yeah,
So if they don't allow people to, like, I'm never going back to work. I am I am remote, like, forever, and I'll keep doing my work because I'm actually getting more done now
yeah.
than I was before, because you don't have all that politicking and the anyways.
Well,
But
I think it's
anybody that,
about flexible solutions too, right? Because I
yeah,
think where a lot of organizations were getting themselves in trouble was this one size fits all solution. So for me, I love working from home. I have for 15, 20 years. I've taken many positions as a consultant where they've then
right,
decided that I needed to be full-time downtown, and I've left. And so I think it's about looking at how do we meet the diverse needs of a diverse team and find a solution that makes everyone work at their fullest potential. And that
you got
is,
it.
there's people who are hating working at home right now. And I think that's where
Cool.
leadership teams need to really look at, if they want to get the best out of their employees, how do we set that up?
And that's fine, but and I so this is just an observation. Again, I don't have data to support this. But the people that are that are most hating this are the extroverts.
Yes.
Who crave the human connection. And like, I'm an introvert, believe it or not.
Me too.
I'm an introvert. I am loving this.
Me too, Vince.
Because
I'm with you.
like, it's just it's tremendous. Because they lose the power that they have to command a room when you're live.
Yeah.
And even when we go back, like, even if you do have to go back to the office, meetings are at your desktop. So what does it matter whether I'm in an office or I'm at home or I'm on a beach in France?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I can adjust for the time, like, who cares?
I agree with you fully. So I want to leave a few minutes. We're just hitting close to 6:30. I want to leave a few minutes if there's any other questions you've seen. Sorry, everyone who's been asking questions that I've ignored them all.
Let me go back.
Is there anything else you've seen that I'm just flipping through? If anyone has any questions for Vince, feel free, of course. As I'm scrolling down here, I will be on these comments a little better next time.
Oh, it's okay. Hey, it's your first show, right? The first one has to go like this. Right? The first one, I said it off the start. The first one goes like this, so that you're 50. He
told you it was going to be terrible, and you kept watching.
So David James. First of all, we made good points. How do we determine the outspoken person who has a legitimate concern from the toxic whiner? Great question. I think you then have to, like, you're not looking at this as a one-off event. If you are making that type of judgment on a single data point, that is problematic in and of itself. If you've got someone who just continually complains and is that whiner, but again doesn't come back with options, with solutions, with possibilities, and it happens habitually, I think that's where you start to trend that person off, because they are not contributing to the success of the organization.
Right.
Versus someone
I'd also argue that it hasn't been addressed properly if it's continuing. That's part of the challenge, right?
Agreed. And that's a lack of management, right? That's a lack of leadership. So I 100% agree. Right?
That's hard.
Well, and you said earlier that you had a leader that told you, like, Lindsay, I hear you. No, I mean that's actually good.
Yes,
I think that's a good thing. Versus, I mean, that's a good idea. Let me see what I can do.
Totally.
Right. Which you spin.
Well, somebody actually said to me afterwards, I can't believe she said that to you. And I said to the person, no, that's her job. Her job is to manage her team. And I'm getting a little unruly. So her job is to get me back.
Correct.
Following her leadership. So I respected her for it. I know not all will, but yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of love. There's a lot of love for not going back to the pre 5-day-a-week butts in seats. That's done. That's done.
I bet.
Although I do need to we need to get back to a place where, because I think I'm rocking the best COVID hair. This is like a tremendous.
I'm so far so good, but we're getting there.
Yeah, mine's normally pretty short. I can do a man bun at this point. So
next time, Vince, time you're on, I want a man bun.
Yes.
So SFE Jude said, I have a habit of questioning authority if it's my project and I want to succeed, and I see them making the bad decisions. I question who's the idiot who thought of this, because it's not doable unless you want to spend way too much money.
Yes. Love it. So I love that. And you are trying to make those decisions because you are invested, right? Especially if it's your project, you are invested. I did a webinar for the business analysts group, the IIBA, about a month ago, and it was a members only webinar. So I felt comfortable saying this, and it's part of my pitch for business analysts that want to become strategic contributors. And my thesis of the talk was, we have to stop stupid people from making the decisions that we are built to make. And it's not that leaders are stupid. It's that often they make decisions with bias with emotion, with gut feel. And we have to stop that. We have to start making decisions that are informed by data, that are informed by logic, and that are absent of bias, which is hard. I acknowledge, but that that you're truly making decisions that are the best course of action. And you will be wrong from time to time. Versus going down a road because somebody thought you should. There's a concept in the project world of the hippo, the highest paid person's opinion, because we love acronyms in business. So the highest paid person's opinion. Well, if the hippo can benefit in some way or doesn't care because they're retiring or whatever, like, they shouldn't be the ones making the decisions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to be logical. You have to use data as much as possible, because those decisions are important, and you can waste a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of goodwill in your people who will leave if they're upset.
Yeah.
Especially now.
Well, and I see it as being decisions using both logic and feelings, because I think sometimes decisions that are based solely on logic miss some of the more intuitive, qualitative aspects.
Correct.
But the other thing I thought of when you were talking was that I see that there seems to be sometimes an overstepping of what is whose responsibility. Back to fear, because of fear that if this person is supposed to do that and they don't, and I don't step in and do it for them, or I don't step in and make the decision, then I'm going to be the one held accountable. Whereas if the lines of responsibility and accountability were clearer and applied clearly, the right people were held accountable for not doing what they're supposed to do, these issues of stepping in where people aren't supposed to wouldn't be so problematic, and that's messy to iron out.
Agreed. But that's where you get back into that politics, right? Like, now you've got this political, not like politics, like elections. I mean, just like human to human interaction. That's where you get that behavior where, so.
Yeah, it's messy.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start.
Should I go through some more comments?
Do you wanna? We can keep going if.
Yeah, I'm good. So Stephen.
You go. I'm good.
Stephen asked, "Am I sure I'm not an omnivert?" Yes, I'm sure. I am an introvert. I'm just on stage at the moment, and so yeah.
So the difference, because believe it or not, I am also really introverted, and so that does not mean that I can't talk to people and be. I'm super giddy and sociable and loud and can walk into a room and strike up a conversation. But oh my God, it exhausts me. I go home and I don't want to leave my house for a month.
That's all it is.
So yeah, I'm with you, Vince.
So Stephanie Angelo, also an introvert, would love to meet for coffee. Done. as soon as Corona's over, done.
She's in Arizona.
Done.
Nice place. Nice place.
It's a bit of a trek from Toronto, but I may be in Vegas. I'm supposed to speak at a conference in Vegas in November. I don't know if it's actually going to happen. If it's happened, I'm nervous about that one. So Stephanie, we'll talk. But you know what? Hit me up on LinkedIn, Stephanie, and if I'm ever out there or you're up in Toronto, we will grab that coffee.
So one thing I wanted to ask, Vince, you have launched your Love the Process Academy recently. So I'd love it if you could share a little bit with us about that.
Yeah. So I observed. So I've always wanted to do an online course, and I did or launch an online academy, and I tried doing it about 3 years ago, and it was a complete failure. So like I said,
did you tell anyone that you created it?
Your first one is always bad, but as a result, the successive ones are better. And so I've noticed that, and it sort of bothers me. There is, especially in like the project space and the work that I do, there's a lot of like technical courses. So you want to learn how to be a better business analyst, you can go and they'll teach you tools, and they'll teach you techniques, and they'll teach you the processes, and that's fine. What was missing was, and the thing that I think I get the most value out of all the different disciplines is about how each one teaches you to think differently. So it's about mindset. And there wasn't really anything like that. And so I've started putting content together and courses together that really focus on mindset and bringing that in. So like the first course that I've launched is, thank you for that. The first one that I've launched is it's called Enterprise Analysis Not as Usual, which is sort of an offshoot from the branding of my podcast, Business Not as Usual. And it's the focus is on shifting your mindset to think more strategically, more logically. And so, I focus on that sort of thing in the academy because I think it's more important. It's, the hard skills we all learn, that's sort of table stakes. If you want to be, in HR, or you want to be a BA or a PM or whatever. And I don't like the term soft skills, so I use the term cognitive skill. Those cognitive skills are not, we don't talk enough about them because they're fluffy, they're feely. And I think that's where you really differentiate yourself from your peers. If you have a better, someone told me once that that they've never seen anybody think the way that I do. And someone else independently said that they thought I thought like a criminal when it comes to like project work, which I'm taking as a
And it's
compliment.
saying that's going to be a
I
compliment.
don't know if they meant it as one, but it was basically like you see all of the different angles on
Yeah.
how to attack a problem, and then you figure out the best way, right? Like there was a scene in Avengers where Doctor Strange is sitting and sort of envisioning and playing through all these different scenarios. This is in Infinity War. All these different scenarios where, how are we going to beat Thanos? And then comes out to, okay, there's a million different possibilities. There's one where we win.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen the movie, it's the one where Iron Man dies. So, spoiler alert, except the movie's been out for over a year. It's about seeing all the different opportunities, almost like problem solving in 3 dimensions, and then attacking at the right angle, much like blowing up the Death Star.
Yeah, it's seeing how things interrelate, I think, right?
Yeah.
And so the example I was thinking of when you were speaking was I just read an article this afternoon about how, the government's proposal regarding COVID is that, so this wasn't in Quebec. I don't remember where it was, but wherever this was, their proposal was that schools are not reopening, but businesses are. And the person writing the article was saying, has anyone thought of this from a parent's perspective? How do I return to work full time when school is not open? Mm-hmm. And it's looking at holistically, how does each decision impact the other pieces, and how do we make the decisions that make the most sense, both on an individual project level and on an organizational level. And I see that's often where, due to communication challenges or differences in priorities and all sorts of different challenges, that those decisions are not always made by taking into account the impact holistically. And then they only realize the impact once they've invested a lot of time and money into projects that
Right. And this
makes no sense.
So this is an example where, they don't truly understand who their stakeholders are.
Right.
They don't understand who are the key people to be impacted by whatever decision we're making. Yeah. And they they made decisions without empathy. And this is another thing. So, we talked about that mindset and all the 3-dimension, like doing a certification in customer experience helped me really articulate this concept of empathy and understanding the customer's journey as they navigate through, doing business with you. And so if you can't appreciate what your customers are going through as far as engaging with you to accomplish some task, then if they've got another option, they're going to go. Yeah. Now, when we're talking about like ministries of education at the provincial level, there's really no other option, although they could homeschool. And And
there's always other options.
There's always other options, right? So
when you can think outside of the box. And I think that's where, again, getting back to fear,
there is no box,
people
though.
get stuck is, but is that they feel there's a box, right? And
there's no box.
They don't think that you can come up with some solution that hasn't been proposed. And I think people are scared sometimes to try those steps that no one has tried and there is no data on. And I think sometimes I think of some of the projects I've been on in my life, and the ones where there was a leader who led in a way where they were not afraid to let you, open your wings and fly and mess up and learn from it. That, like, having worked under leaders like that, I think is what sent me down the path I'm on now professionally, because it opened doors to me that I didn't even see. They probably didn't see either, but it's trust, really, I guess, right?
And it's fear, right? It's the antithesis to fear. It's doing it despite the fear, because it's that fear that stops you from doing what it is that you truly want to do. And especially when we talk about corporate life, it's the fear of being wrong and of being
the repercussions
of being, a failure. Like if you're, I see this a lot in like business transformations, digital transformations. If you are engaged in a transformation, it is not you're trying to do something that has never been done before.
Yeah.
Which inherently means your probability of failure is higher than doing something, but acknowledge that. Like you're trying to do something you've never done before. It's going to be hard. And so what ends up happening is the fear ends up slowing that process down to where it becomes very watered down, and then you're not actually transforming, you're tweaking.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, so one thing you said too was that about fear is that I think it's not about not feeling afraid. It's that you recognize that you're feeling afraid and you do it anyhow.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes when we get stuck in fear, we don't even realize that we're feeling afraid and that's the thing holding us back. And sometimes just having that moment where we realize, oh gosh, I'm scared of, what people will think of me, or what my boss will say, or what, if it's going to put my next promotion at risk and things like that.
And David James said, courage is doing what's right in spite of the fear. Agreed. And you and I had a we closed the bar. I
don't ever do that. I don't know what you're talking about.
We closed the bar. We weren't drinking,
hours.
but we were just there having a very intense conversation. Because one thing that I suffer from hugely is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Which is, if you're not familiar, if your viewers aren't familiar with imposter syndrome, it's this idea that, at some point, this illusion that you've built of yourself having expertise will come crashing down, and people will realize that you're a fraud, that you're a complete fraud. Totally. And it, that fear hits me every time I'm about to go on stage.
Yeah.
Every time. And it's like, is this the keynote? Is this the talk? Is this the workshop where everyone realizes I actually don't know as much as I think I know?
Yeah.
And it's, it can be but you do it because you have something to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so David is right. Like you've got to do it despite having the fear. You've got to get through.
In many respects. So when I think of my journey, I felt like that when I graduated from my master's. I felt like a complete imposter, despite, having the full credentials to practice in my previous profession as a speech therapist. But I still felt like they shouldn't have given me my degree. Somebody messed up and somehow didn't figure out that I didn't know what I was doing. And then as I practiced and, gained more confidence, that feeling of being an imposter really disappeared. I really moved into feeling like an expert. And then I shifted, same knowledge, absolutely same body of knowledge, same expertise. I just shifted it to applying it to a new population, and it was right back. And part of and it's still there to a certain extent, but part of what helps me work through it is to do it anyhow and realize, oh, I had this meeting with this huge corporate entity and they see my expertise.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I should see that too, you know?
Yeah.
So doing it even though you're scared,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it does confirm your fear, I suppose, when it doesn't go well. But then I think it's just getting back to talking yourself through, just keep trying, keep doing it again.
Because what's the alternative?
Right.
You
Right.
sit in a box and sit in the box and you never do anything great.
Yeah.
My man Dan Simon checking in from Ohio here. We all fall victim to imposter syndrome. And Sammy Hagar once said that going on stage is like walking around with no clothes on. Yep, because
Yeah.
it's true. But what's the alternative? Like,
Yeah.
for us that speak and train and coach, it means that you don't impact
Right.
the lives of people that need you, and that to me is more I'm more afraid of that. And so to me it becomes this idea of, what's the alternative?
Yeah. So I think when you're really connected to your passion, your why, your reason why you're doing what you're doing in the world, it does make it easier to get back to that process of continuous improvement and just looking at, I mean, I certainly have my moments when I wonder, what the heck are you doing? And, but I can always get myself back to looking at what is progressing and what is going well and what needs to be tweaked and changed to keep moving forward. But I think it's because I'm very intimately connected to the reason why I'm doing what I do, because I love it and I think it's important. And, if people are struggling with that, maybe that's a piece to look at, right? What is the reason I do this work? To get back to that desire to keep focusing on how to improve.
Yeah. And that's where, so I mean, I didn't, you know what, this is not ready to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it anyway, because I didn't know that we were going to get into fear, and I'm actually glad that we did, because it is a fascinating topic. But this is one of the next workshops that I'm putting together, is on how to power through your fear, and that means both, powering through your fear, but getting power and leverage from your fear to drive you forward. So I'm way too early to give any detail, but that is one of the next workshops that I'm going to be putting out probably before the end of the year, because I think it's important, and that fear holds so much great potential back that it is bothering me enough that I want to do something about it.
That's awesome. I think it's a great message.
Thank you.
So listen, Vince,
yes.
We're 18 minutes over.
No, we're going all night, baby. We're going all night.
All night. I can talk for hours on end. My husband's probably like, thank God I don't have to listen to her tonight. Thank God someone else will listen to her. Introvert in terms of hanging out with lots of people, but I like to talk a lot. So.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think we had fun, at the speakers convention, because there was a big thing. And then you and I sort of snuck off. We just went to the hotel bar and just talked for a couple hours, and it was like one-on-one. It was a nice bring down. Not that you're a bring down, but like you know what I mean.
And on that, we will sign off.
Good night, everyone. I'll never be invited back again. No, but it was great conversation, to where I didn't feel that same, exhaustion that I normally get out of being on in a crowd.
Yeah, same. So listen, as we wrap up here, I just want to give you a chance for your academy. I know you had an offer for anyone interested. I'd love to not let you forget to share that with everyone.
Thank you. So it is still very much
let me put this back up.
Yeah, it's very much in the formational phase, but I've got a couple courses up there that you can take if you're interested in learning more about me, and you enjoy my teaching style, because the videos are much like this. It's completely on demand, so you're good to go. But if you go to this website, or Love the Process Academy, and in honor of our foray into the LinkedIn Almost Live hashtag, if you use code Almost Live, all one word, before the 6th, then you can get 10% off everything. Everything that's there, save a little dough.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I hope everyone will go and take a peek at that. I'm going to throw Vince's website up here for you also. And so, yeah, thank you everyone for watching. We've run over, as I knew we would. I knew half an hour would not work, and I thought
this is only a half hour.
It depends
oh my God,
on,
I'm so sorry.
Oh no, it's all good. I set it up for a half hour and thought we'll see how it goes and if people are still watching, and lots of value. So I'm happy to stay on. And frankly, anyone who was sick of listening to us is gone already. So that's why I figured we could keep going.
I thought it was an hour. My bad. My bad.
Well, no, all is good. I am going to share a few links again here. So hang on. I'm going to share a link again to next week's event, except I'm not, because it just disappeared. All right. Well, you can follow the hashtag Live with Lindsay, and I will get next week's event is up, but I will get a post up sharing that, and hope you guys will join us again. And Vince, thank you for sharing your time with us and all your brilliance about how we can continue to focus on improving constantly at work. Thank
Lindsay,
you.
You are a delight, and I wish you the most of success with this live endeavor.
Well,
so
thank you.
Thank you very much for letting me be guest
first
one.
Live visitor. I appreciate it. All right, Vince.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks,
okay,
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.